Remember when Jon Snow was ready to throw hands with the whole army back in the Battle of... Yeah, he may not have been able to follow through on that moment, but the TV region did find the top 30 One Army moments in the movies for you. Enjoy. It's no surprise that we see Jason Statham on this list today, that too in a franchise that managed to keep him in the mainstream for much longer than guys like him usually last. I mean, just look at Scott Adkins, that dude is an absolute beast, but poor guy's been stuck to playing side roles since the Undisputed movies. Anyway, this scene deals with Frank taking on an entire gang by himself, and even though it follows the typical trope of the bad guys going at the hero one after the other, it's still a stellar display. The kind of flexibility Frank shows in his suit is brilliant, and we all need to remember that Statham does either most or all of his own stunts. The key takeaway for me was when bro was literally taking out the trash by smacking the goons into a garbage disposal unit one by one. The real winner here though has got to be the dude who gets to keep a sweet ride at the end of all that drama. Hit Girl has been one of the standout characters from Kick-Ass, sometimes even surpassing the main character in terms of flexing. Her hallway fight scene showed us that she's more than capable of taking down multiple opponents at the same time, that too without showing them any mercy. Chloe Grace Moretz owned this role, and the amount of action she gave us in this one scene alone allows her to stand out on her own, not just some side character. Hit Girl isn't one to show mercy, and she's no different here, while showcasing some of her deadliest moves. Dear God, she wasn't even trying to show any kind of mercy to her opposition. At one point, I was feeling bad for all those dudes even though they were much higher in number. This is actually a moment that proves to us all that when done properly, one-woman armies can also be a thing to cheer for. Like, shouldn't you at least wonder how there are so many dudes coming at you? That too, in a freaking restaurant. You know, I've usually covered only the final part of this fight where Singh is able to achieve a dominant victory over the beast with his Buddhist palm technique. However, when it comes to one-man army moments, what happens before that particular battle is actually quite special. Singh takes on so many opponents that it's hard to count the number of victims he's piling on. There's this one shot where we see a bunch of enemies floating in the air after being smacked by Singh. Yeah, it instantly came to mind when I saw that picture of people floating at Coachella during Travis Scott's performance. I know all these guys were nothing more than obstacles to Singh before he could deal with the Beast, but to have done it so dominantly and also defeat Beast right after was the work of a true commander. I know films like this are too over the top, but cinema really needs them right now.
Not without incident. I'm coming.
Christian Bale really can do it all, can't he? Whether it's his extreme weight loss or weight gain routines, or even his on-screen personas, the man is rarely found lacking, and here as John Preston, it's almost as if the word failure doesn't exist in his dictionary. Yes, a lot of people have made fun of this scene by cracking sarcastic jokes like, yeah, my granddad fought in Vietnam, and he told me this was exactly how they fought. However, you can't deny the fact that it's a really cool scene to watch, especially that excessive stunt John pulls off with the guns. Like, come on, as crazy as it may have looked, don't you just wish you could be able to pull off something like that? Also, Equilibrium seems to have started closing in on cult classic status soon, so at least it's getting some due recognition. One more thing, there's a tiny little detail when John turns and the guy flinches, revealing he's afraid, hence he's a sense offender. That ends up getting his life spared, which I thought was a nice act of consideration. Netflix adaptation of Devil May Cry is getting a fair amount of love, primarily due to its antagonist Dante stealing the show, even though I personally feel he should have been given more screen time. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that just like Dante is a human and demon hybrid hunting down demons, Blade 2 is a vampire and human hybrid who hunts down vampires. More importantly, he's got tons more aura because when he enters a club full of blood-sucking monsters, they already get a sense of what's coming. This sequence was so cool to watch, especially in all of its R-rated glory. Nobody expected a movie like this to be as big of a hit as it eventually became, which was possibly due to Wesley Snipes taking down all of those vampires at the same time, all by himself. Oh man, we surely need more movies like this in the new age. I mean, if Jack Black can successfully lead the Minecraft movie, then I'm sure we can do something about vampire hunters too, right? When you give a man a reason to fight, he won't care if he's up against endless armies, he'll still go out there and fight. Leon is one of the prime examples of such a statement, as we see him saving Matilda from a SWAT team by firing at them right out of the blue. Yeah, who would have thought that they'd be the bad guys here, right? Anyway, it's a perfect gotcha moment, and our man is able to take down everyone who's around Matilda so that he can take her away and keep her safe. It's a short and sweet performance, but very effective, because there's a reason the movie calls Leon a professional. I also want to shout out the next scene where he helps Matilda escape in a very emotional sequence and also tricks his enemies into actually rescuing him after their onslaught. Bro was thinking with his gun as well as his brains.
This is from Matilda. Shit.
Whenever you're ready, I'll take on any Japanese here.
If you're going to be so shameless as to mock a man like Bruce Lee, then you need to be prepared to face the consequences. That's what happens to those Japanese students who thought that Chinese folks are weak and they deserve no mercy. Shenzhen gives us a display that not only shows how good he is as a fighter, but also speaks volumes about the kind of respect he commands via his persona. Bro not only defeated all the students, but their sensei as well, and from the looks of it, he could have probably faced a couple more high-level fighters too. I know this is one man against an entire dojo, but it never felt like that. It was kind of like the whole Rorschach vibe where you're the one actually locked in with him rather than the other way around. It's a shame that this was one of the last few films where we could get to see the legend in action.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
You can definitely consider this as one man against several others, but even then, I'd say that this was disadvantageous to the Hydra agents. Even Steve Rogers himself knew the outcome the moment he realized what everyone was planning to do to him in the elevator. Bro issued a fair warning, and after that, it was complete and utter dominance. I'll give it to the Hydra agents for being able to get a few licks in, but come on, this man is a super soldier. He may not look very strong as compared to a Hulk or a Thor, but normal humans, or as a matter of fact, even super buff humans, don't stand a chance against him. Steve Rogers was suffering from a lack of aura points up until this movie because he was kind of like a Mary Sue sort of character. All of that changed the moment he got done with thrashing an entire elevator full of skilled fighters.
It kind of feels personal.
I did say that martial artists were going to dominate this list, so say hello to Mr. Jet Li as Danny the Dog. Look, I'm still uncomfortable with the fact that a legend like Jet Li was being treated like a literal dog in this movie, even though I'm aware that the plot demanded it. What I can agree upon, though, is the way he savagely tore into those silly, unsuspecting fools in the opening sequence of Unleashed. One command was all he needed to activate the dire wolf within him, and bro was able to do that without having to rely on colossal biosciences. The man wasn't even scared of literal gunshots. Only thing on his mind was brutality, and he nailed the tone to the T. Anyway, Jet Li commands the whole sequence, and credit for that has to go to his choreographer Corey Yen, who also worked with Mr. Lee across a majority of his films. Our boy Arnold is back, and how? Commando's final sequence had John Matrix causing chaos all on his own, and he was treating it like a walk in the park. This isn't some small feat. Bro was up against countless soldiers, and he still makes it feel as if he's the one hurting them. There isn't a lot of stealth on display here because John knows he's him. I'd like to say that this was a sort of sweet spot that Arnold Schwarzenegger had created in the action genre. Here, everything was a bit over the top, silly, and in some cases a parody of itself, but the one thing he didn't compromise on was being extremely badass. I mean, come on, it's Arnold doing an action scene in the 80s. He literally looks like he could run through a brick wall without even getting a scratch. This really was entertainment at its finest. Fitting Hugh Jackman as Wolverine in the middle of the plot of X-Men Apocalypse may be one of the strangest decisions ever made, but hey, if that means I get to see Logan in his wildest element, then I'm not going to complain, am I? This moment was teased in the trailers, so it didn't really come as a complete surprise, but even then, the audience totally enjoyed watching the Wolverine go berserk, that too without any sense of self. This is essentially a wild beast on the prowl, and I'm sure Jean Grey may have doubted her decision to free him at least once. It really was apt to say that Weapon X is loose, because that's a disaster just waiting to happen. You want to know something interesting? Jean Grey eventually uses her telepathic powers to calm down Wolverine and get some of his memories back. She basically did the same thing for him back in the OG X-Men film as well. Is it really an escape if you're burning your enemies in front of your own eyes in cold blood? There are two key moments here for Tony Stark, one inside the cave and one outside the cave.
My turn.
But the common denominator is that he's alone against the army that caught him. Yes, I'll consider this to be an actual army because they're definitely big enough to be considered an independent one. Anyway, the dominance that the Mark I suit exerts on them kinda renders the entire thing moot, so let's just enjoy the first visuals of Iron Man in action. We should also consider the fact that Ho got ended in the crossfire and was the only one who helped Tony during his very difficult time, so our hero is in no mood to leave any survivors behind despite being severely outnumbered. Bro refused to jet out till he took down as many weapons as he could. Before I begin this, I just want to thank Tony Jaa for making people all over the world know the beauty of Muay Thai as a form of martial arts. He's an idol to most, and a lot of his fame is because of the impact he created via the first Ong Bak film. The final battle has our man Tien performing to a whole other level. He takes on a whole gang, then the Prime Fighters, and even a wheelchair dude with a gun. Bro doesn't discriminate. If you're wondering why I'm saying this, the man literally shows us 4 different types of kicking in real combat, that too within 40 seconds or so. The man was unstoppable. As an opponent, you gotta wonder if it's even worth all the damage. Yeah, there's a reason this movie led to some pretty badass sequels too. It may not normally be appealing to watch a greasy, bald man fight, but it's the transporter we're talking about here, so you can count me in. Jason Statham combines his physical prowess and his strategic thinking here to give us a unique display of one versus many. Frank realizes that he's not going to win this by aura alone, so using the oil canisters and then the bike pedals to give himself a very due advantage was a nice piece of thinking from whoever came up with that idea. It's actually more enjoyable sometimes to see the main character win like this, rather than use brute strength all the time. Also, the way he made his escape looked like a lot of fun. Not the part where he uses a human shield against a barrage of bullets though. I was talking about sliding while dodging said bullets, which has got to be the next big thing they introduce in Squid Game. Look, I can understand that people can get a bit too restless when it comes to crowded bathrooms, but this is ridiculous. Rama was hoarding the whole place to himself, so he pretty much made those enemies on his own. Alright, on a serious note, it was a smart strategy to go at his opponents 2 at a time by luring them into the narrow space, but eventually, our man does have to shove himself into what can be assumed to be dozens of angry dudes. Yes, I'll admit that those guys should have been able to break through the door if they tried at the same time, but we've got to give our hero some kind of advantage, right? How else is he going to take down an army by himself in the bathroom? I can't imagine it would be smelling all that pleasant either. You know, it's funny that most people remember this sequence because of the fight Lorraine has against 2 men at the stairwell. However, after she gets done with them in one of the best female-led action scenes of all time, Lorraine also takes care of multiple goons, although this time she's using her gun a lot more frequently than earlier. It's understandable and very believable too, so full credit goes to Charlize Theron for giving us an impeccable display of what badass women can achieve with good writing. This scene may appear as if it was done in a single take, but of course, the editors have made us think that way. This means that Charlize Theron actually had to film such intense moments multiple times, and the final product is pretty freaking good. I'm actually a bit bothered by the fact that we haven't seen a movie like this ever again. The Karate Kid is a popular franchise, isn't it? Multiple movies, a remake, and a whole Netflix sequel show titled Cobra Kai, which spanned over 6 seasons. It's a good thing those fellas never came across Jet Li, because that man would have put everyone to shame with his skills. In Kiss of the Dragon, Lee was pretty much just minding his own business in front of those karate dudes, but they wanted the smoke, so he gave it to them, and in abundance too. Our man leaves no stone unturned as he straight up sends people flying into each other and fights multiple dudes at the same time without the standard luxury of having his opponents wait for their turn. He legit runs into them and his nunchucks and smacks the daylights out of them. Cobra Kai's tagline may have been no mercy, but Jet Li's the one implementing it in his fights. Who would have thought that each of the 3 OG Transporter movies would get an entry in today's list? Well, Jason Statham is just that kind of a crowd puller, and by that I mean inciting multiple people to attack him at all times. Frank puts on a stellar showcase once again in a car workshop, while Valentina watches on to see why this man has 3 movies to his name. Bro was absolutely relentless even when he had his full suit on, but we know Jason's got to flex those abs, so he had to take his shirt off eventually. Seeing Frank against 10 random dudes may be boring, but the real fun came when we saw him beat up the big one, who was literally there to be a big punching bag. The rapid cuts were a bit much, but we must remember that this film's director Olivier Megaton also directed the 2 Taken sequels. The first movie has already been covered, so you should have expected the second one to appear at some point too. I mean, this battle goes on for maybe 15 or 20 minutes in total, and Tony Jaa makes it seem as if he can double it if he wants to. I don't know how else to explain this sequence, because it's like the man is in some kind of video game where he's just facing tougher opponents the moment he beats the previous ones. This one is most definitely an army that bro's fighting, because it's like they're unlimited. It's a never-ending display of fighting and winning, which is a form of extremism that I didn't know I needed. While Tony Jaa is the main man for sure, I must also give a shout out to the choreographers, the tons of stuntmen that were required here, and the camera crew for making this finale as impactful as possible. With legends like Bruce Lee and Jet Li already making their mark, I'm sure you might be wondering where the heck Jackie Chan has vanished to. Well, here he is in one of the most enjoyable fights I've ever watched. The mall battle from Police Story isn't fun just because of the punches and kicks, but also because of the chaos. Inspector Chan goes freaking berserk here, smashing through glass and beating down multiple dudes by himself, while also trying to protect his lady friend. It's almost as if the directors asked Jackie Chan how much destruction he wanted for the sequence, and he answered with yes. There are some long takes here that are phenomenal, and they're blended extremely well with the rapid shots, so whoever edited this scene definitely deserved a raise. I know the assassins that the bride fights here are called the Crazy 88, but the only part where I agree that they're crazy is their belief that they can defeat Beatrix Kiddo. Uma Thurman does such a good job of portraying a crazed, murderous bride who wants revenge for what's happened to her. I know it's also crazy to think that any person would be able to defeat 88 skilled fighters, but hey, emotions can do all kinds of things to a human being, you know. The bride goes full Monty as she lets all of us know that she isn't there to be a damsel in distress. She is the distress. I guess you could say she was channeling that Walter White energy before bro was even a thing.
Maximum effort.
Deadpool may not be the first name that comes to your mind when you think of the term one-man army, but he's actually quite capable of taking down multiple opponents with rapid ease. Yes, we're not doubting his powers, but the dude's so busy cracking jokes that you forget how skilled he is in combat. Take the highway scene for example. I was so busy laughing at all the jokes that I completely forgot he was assassinating a whole gang all by himself. That too, just because he wanted to find Francis. It actually summed up everything about the character quite effectively. I really want to talk more about how awesome the action sequences are here, but I won't be able to do that without mentioning one of the countless gags this entire opening scene has. Rama may not look like the type of guy who can beat down dozens of attackers at the same time, but he's done it enough times to be part of the Hall of Fame for one-man armies. The encounter with the Machete Gang is one example of that, as we see Rama doing his best not to get slashed down by them. He eventually lands some serious blows, but that's what happens when you get into tussles with people who crave violence. There's also the fact that bro didn't even want the smoke first. It was like he just went, oh, for the love of God, now I'm gonna have to thrash all of these guys too. I guess even badasses like Rama are human after all. Nobody can ever claim to be a gangster in the presence of Bruce Lee, and this sequence proves it. Bro straight up schooled a whole gang of thugs on his own terms as if he was their mob boss or something. I'm not even kidding. At no point did it look like Tang was even trying to be considerate, as he was busy flexing his skills when he wasn't whooping their butts. It was like a mix of action and comedy. Which in my opinion worked quite well. I love how that last thug didn't really want to fight and tried to leave, but Tang was like, oh nah, you're getting this beaten too. Yeah, the level of disrespect he showed was crazy. We may consider him to be nowhere near Superman's power level, but the moment you bring Martha into the equation,
Why did you say that name?
it's almost as if Batman's a completely new person.
Martha won't die tonight.
The warehouse fight scene had him pulling moves we'd never seen before, even from the likes of Christian Bale or Michael Keaton. There was a serious amount of rage within Bruce Wayne, and he let it all out against those goons, who may have been given a much harder beating than they deserved. I can be sympathetic to the bad guys if they're getting destroyed beyond recovery. I should, however, point out that the dude who stabbed Batman did break his combo moves, so he for sure got what was coming to him.
I'll kill her! Believe me, I'll do it!
I believe you. It's okay. I'm a friend of your son's.
It's almost as if it's some kind of ritual for me to remind you that the old boy hallway fight scene is undisputed and unbeatable in terms of impact. Old Isu kind of feels like an old buddy of mine now, but I'd rather not have that because that dude had some serious issues to resolve. The fight in itself is a masterpiece in multiple forms of filmmaking, and the only reason I haven't put it at number one is because I've given it that spot way too many times. Also, did you know that there's an American version of Old Boy with Josh Brolin playing the main character? The only way I liked it better than the original was that it didn't traumatize me the same way. If you like the video, please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.